I'm dropped from the frame. He fell. And I continued taking pictures. I backed up. I jumped up on a table. Everyone in front of me had been shot and fell. And I jumped up to get out of the way, continued taking pictures for a while. A friend of ours got past us. We thought, you know, it would be fun. We could get some pictures. So that's why we came. I feel there are some missing from it. I took a 36 exposure roll, and I got 26 prints back.
As he tried to leave the hotel, Enyart was arrested at gunpoint. His film was confiscated. In the early morning hours, he was taken by jail bus to the LAPD's Rampart station.
At that point, they released me about 7 o'clock in the morning with an empty camera. And they told me that later on that my photographs are going to be used in the trial of Sirhan. They gave me back photographic prints of the speech and then everything after I left the pantry, but they took all the pictures that I actually took in the pantry. Those were missing. That's basically it. Then I waited 20 years. They told me, you know, the courts have sealed this evidence for 20 years. You're a good citizen. We appreciate what you did, but you got to wait. I waited for 20 years, 1988. I wrote a letter, said, can I have my film back? And I was notified by the California State Archives that my photographs, along with 2,400 other pieces of evidence, had been destroyed by the LAPD 3 weeks before Sirhan's trial.
Contrary to popular belief, there is no photographic or video record of the assassination of Robert Kennedy. Scott Enyart's pictures were the only ones taken of the shooting as it was occurring. It is therefore impossible to believe that both the prints and the negatives would have somehow been lost by accident. We know that they were developed because Enyart received prints of both before and after the shooting. And as Enyart has told us, he was screened from Sirhan. All we would have seen in Enyart's photos is what was going on behind Senator Kennedy. What subversive image, then, had Scott Enyart's camera captured? A strong clue may be found in the autopsy performed upon the body of Robert Kennedy by L.A. County Coroner Dr. Thomas Noguchi.
In accordance with California law and in a meticulous effort to avert any question or controversy, a painstaking 6-hour autopsy was carried out this morning.
Briefly stated, the autopsy found that the wounds inflicted upon Senator Kennedy were inflicted from behind, at a sharp upward angle, and at extremely close range. Using powder burn analysis, Noguchi determined that the fatal bullet was fired at a distance of about 1 to 3 inches behind the right ear.
Dr. Noguchi, were you able to determine how far the gun muzzle was from Senator Kennedy's head?
One gunshot wound was found behind the right ear, and there were abundance of a powder deposit on the edge of the right ear, and after testifying the similar weapon, we came to conclusion that the muzzle distance would be a 1 inch from the right ear edge and no more than 3 inches.
Dr. Noguchi's findings made him unpopular in certain circles in Los Angeles. As he went to testify before the grand jury, Noguchi was reportedly approached by an assistant district attorney and asked to change his calculations on the firing distance from inches to feet. Noguchi refused. He then became the target of a vicious campaign to destroy his credibility. In the autumn of 1968, he was suspended as coroner, and defense attorneys prevented the details of his autopsy from being introduced at the trial of Sirhan. Nevertheless, the wounds as described by Dr. Noguchi seem entirely inconsistent with a Sirhan who was placed by most witnesses wrestling with Maitre d' Carl Euchre about 4 to 6 feet in front of Senator Kennedy.
Attorney Godfrey Isaac defended him.
Well, the first question that I ask of a witness with reference to showing what a competent and really extraordinary autopsy Dr. Noguchi performed, the Deputy County Counsel asked to approach the commissioners, and they're stated that if I went into the questioning further, that it would cause an international incident.
Now, what was meant by international repercussions on that day with regards to Senator Robert F. Kennedy's autopsy?
Well, Deputy County Counsel Martin Weeks did not define what he meant by that, but he seemed to indicate that it would cast a great deal of doubt on what we'd heard about Robert Kennedy's death.
The headlines at the time said that there was a mystery to the Robert Kennedy autopsy.
Well, a paradox that's never been explained. is how the Los Angeles County, through the district attorney's office, could base a murder charge on the autopsy of Dr. Noguchi, and then in the hearing relative to his firing, tried to take the same autopsy to show that he should be fired. As a matter of fact, I don't think this is something that can be explained, and I think that anyone who reasons and thinks would be naive not to feel there might be some connection with regard to assassinations and what occurred. My wife, Rowena, who acted as my legal aid throughout the hearing, which, as you know, resulted in Dr. Noguchi's being completely cleared of all the charges and reinstated as coroner, received a call from a lady who, in fact, made an appointment to come to our home and who wanted to speak with us because she had been at the Ambassador that night, and she herself had seen a security guard firing.
If we follow the paths of the bullets that struck Robert Kennedy, they seem to point not to Sirhan, but to an assassin directly behind and to the right of the senator. Though the police initially claimed that there were no other guns drawn in the pantry, there was a person directly behind Robert Kennedy, to his right, with a gun drawn. Scott Enyart saw him.
Getting up off the floor, he had his weapon out.
Suspicion directed at Thane Eugene Caesar, an employee of a security service, is not new. It was the central thesis of Ted Chirac's groundbreaking 1973 film documentary, The Second Gun. According to his own testimony, Caesar was a last-minute recruit for duty at the Ambassador that night. He had worked for Ace for less than a week. Caesar has admitted that he had his gun drawn that night, but he says he never fired it. But another witness, journalist Don Shulman, claimed to a radio reporter immediately after the murder that he saw Caesar fire his gun.
I was in the pantry-way following the senator. He stopped and shook hands with several people and started to progress again. We were packed in there like sardines. There were lights and cameras and people and a lot of excitement. The senator just finished shaking hands with someone, and another man, I think it was the maitre d', walked up and took his hand. As we were slowly pushed forward, another man stepped out and he shot. Just then the guard who was standing behind Kennedy took out his gun and he fired also. The next thing I knew is that Kennedy was shot 3 times.
Now, how far was Sirhan from Senator Kennedy at the time?
I would say approximately from 3 to 6 feet.
Where was this guard who was firing his gun?
He was standing directly to the side and back of Kennedy.
On what side?
He was standing on the right-hand side.
Now, Don, did you tell this story to any police authorities?
I told the story to several different people, including several police authorities. Right after it happened, I insisted the senator was shot 3 times. I was told by the police...
Which police?
Well, I was told by the FBI that I was told by the FBI, my own news people, that I was mistaken, that I was wrong. The senator was only shot twice.
Now, when you say your own news people, who do you mean?
Well, I was on the air with Jerry Dunphy. Also, I did a tape recording with Jeff Brent. And several people I told. In fact, I also told them that the guard pulled out the gun. And everyone told me that in the confusion, I didn't see what I saw. Well, I didn't see everything that happened that night because of the blinding lights and the people screaming. But the things that I did see, I'm sure about. And that is Kennedy being shot 3 times. The guard definitely pulled out his gun and fired.
Jerry Dunphy once again back at KNXT election headquarters. Don Shulman, one of our KNXT employees, witnessed the shooting that we've been telling you about. Kennedy was walking toward the kitchen. That was his route out of the ballroom. A man stepped out of a crowd and shot Kennedy. Kennedy's bodyguards fired back. The suspect now in custody at the Ambassador Hotel.
And I definitely wouldn't have voted for Bobby Kennedy because he had the same ideas as John did, and I think John sold the country down the road. He gave it to the commies. He gave it to whoever else he wanted to. He literally gave it to the minority. He says, here, this is it. You take over. I'm giving it to you. You run the white man. Nobody should be run. I'm not saying that the white should be the slave to the black or the black the slave to the white, but he turned the pendulum too far the other way.
I'm not a Democrat.
Oh. Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with that. I was going down there just for the money.
Now, who did you vote for in November?